Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland, and here on this channel we give weekly, actually doubly weekly, NFL analysis in the middle of the season and other sports. YouTube.com/ESVN show. Put on push notifications. Rate us 5 stars on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. Subscribe, and subscribe to the newsletter, figurative newsletter of sympathy for Bradley Alsop. I don't know why it's a newsletter.
What?
But like some sort of like give him your healing energy is really what I want to say.
I'm not even sure what this is referring to.
It's referring to the Jets, Jets. You're a Chiefs fan now?
I'm a Chiefs fan.
Oh, we all knew this all along.
Weird that you would think I was a Jets fan when I was
You've been
Kansas City born and bred. Chiefs fan my whole life. Super vindicated by their recent success over the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, you went through the doldrums. You went through the eras when, they were picking Eric Fisher first overall.
Eras, good call out. Eras.
Yeah.
For the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce of it all.
Why did you even? I was going to go through this episode without even bringing it up.
I'm a Chiefs fan. It's all I think about.
Oh, did you notice that? How did you feel about Taylor Swift putting ranch on her chicken tenders or whatever that?
Oh, I'm a ranch. I love ranch.
I put ranch on chicken tenders.
Yeah, pizza.
I'm
pretty nasty.
I will say that one of my late night snacks are I get those frozen tater tots from Whole Foods.
Oh, I love.
I'll make them in the oven, and then I put them on a plate, and it's like I create a canal of tater tots on the small plate, and on one side I put the ketchup, on the other side I put the ranch, and I alternate dipping the tater tots.
That's fascinating. It's like a moat.
Mm-hmm. It is like a moat, but the liquid's on the other side.
A condiment.
And then in the course of eating them, they'll get some sauce on them, and that's all well and good.
That's totally fine.
And I don't have to use 3 different plates
Ramekins.
Or containers. Exactly. One for the ranch, one for the ketchup, one for the tots. No.
This is efficiency.
I have created a reverse moat.
That's right. I love this. I'm going to adopt this, I think. Maybe put some cheese on the tots, potentially.
Well, you know that would not be okay with me.
Oh, I apologize. Right.
Yeah, so don't ruin my...
This would be my innovation. This would be my variation on the form, not...
Yeah.
I would not put cheese on your tots. I would put cheese on mine.
I will just say this since you brought it up. I was not going to bring it up. I don't understand how there's so many adults that love Taylor Swift, and it is
me included.
Yeah. I don't understand that. I mean, okay, she's fine, but the mania is insane. And also, I kind of respect a little bit more when celebrities just keep things a little bit on the down low. What they've been on 2 dates, and then she's making a big public appearance.
I'm not.
Seems pretty weird.
I'm not even certain. I'm not fully certain that they're dating or not. I don't know what the actual I'm not certain.
So time to go public when it's completely up in the air.
Yeah, I guess what I mean is he was I saw you in Arrowhead, you should see me in Arrowhead. But I guess she was sitting in the box with his mom, so I feel like it's probably a little bit more forward than just
we're spending too much time on it. We're spending too much time.
I don't know, but we could study this stuff like the Zapruder film and still
people do. They're studying the freaking ranch that she's eating with her chicken. You think they're not studying that 4-second video of them walking together like the Zapruder film?
Which, funnily enough, was taken by Walter Payton's son.
Oh, well, I mean, she went there to get photographed, and she certainly did get photographed.
Well, there you go.
Anyway, we will talk about that game in a bit, but probably more about the Bears because of what they're going through. But we have to start with the Dolphins, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
wow.
Miami's home opener could not have been more exciting for those fans. I mean, they potentially, if Mike McDaniel was not such a good guy, and we'll get to his quote on this in a second, but they could have seen the NFL record for most points put up. That was the most points put up by the Dolphins in their 58-year history. They had never scored more than 55 points. They scored more than 2 touchdowns, more than that, against the Denver Broncos, who are not supposed to be the worst defense in the NFL. They have some guys. They have Pat Surtain, who is one of the best corners in the NFL.
Randy Gregory.
Totally. They have some guys that make some money on that side of the
Justin
ball.
Simmons, yeah.
And Vance Joseph is their defensive coordinator.
Who is like a good coordinator.
Good coordinator, but it doesn't matter in this offense. And what blows my mind is they did that all without their wide receiver too, Jalen Waddle, who was out with a concussion for the game. I mean, just some of the stats, I'm just going to say this. Like, Devon
It's like
Achane,
it's like Madden stats, like stat padding, basically.
233 total yards, 4 touchdowns for their rookie running back.
Yeah, this was like the first game he was getting like meaningful touches. And he went for over 200.
I mean, how many waiver claims in fantasy are going to be put out for Devon Achane? Mostert had 4 touchdowns of his own. So that is 8 touchdowns to 2 players who are running backs.
Nice.
Let alone the touchdown to Tyreek Hill, which to start the scoring off for the Dolphins.
Nice for a certain fantasy owner in this room to have subbed out Samaje Perine for Raheem Mostert prior to this game.
And that sounds like that's you. Good for you.
41.7 points.
All right, so you're feeling
my starting lineup.
You're feeling a little bit better.
Thank
even
you,
though,
Mostert.
Zach Wilson put out that performance.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's
people forget that the Giants lost earlier
bad.
this week, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah, the stats for one thing, and also the yards. Obviously, it's over 763 yards. I think something from like that, like one of the highest amounts of yards accrued in the last 20 years, at least in I think maybe even longer, but definitely since like 2002 or something.
Yeah, this is supposed to be professional football, not like Alabama facing South Coastal Carolina State Junior or whatever the hell.
Yeah, no, it's much easier to see it's much easier to stomach like Ohio State or Notre Dame played like incarnate word and beat them 81-0 or something, and it's like, well, that's like a D1 AA school trying to get some exposure by getting destroyed by a blue chip program. This is like like you said, this is like a literal NFL team who by the way, like expended a lot of capital to try to make this team good.
Oh yeah,
like Sean Payton as coach, the revamped offensive line, the revamp, signing people on defense, and as we said about some of these players, like some actually like really like plus talent on the defensive side getting just demolished, like historically.
I mean, the holes
offense.
that they were running through, it was like there were no defenders there. And the thing about the difference between the professionals and college ball is that ostensibly it's an even playing field. If you're bad, you have top picks in each of the rounds in the NFL draft. So that's supposed to even the playing field, and it's what makes the NFL so exciting. But it looked like they were in 2 different just categories, especially And the Broncos had some hopes of being good this year, and Sean Payton has a history of being a very, well-respected coach and has won a Super Bowl in the NFL. But no, I mean, for his defense, they torched him. Tua went 16 for 16 in the first half for 206 yards. 16 for 16, a 100% completion rate in the first half of the game. And that last time that happened was Carson Palmer in Week 6 of the 2017 season.
Wow.
He went 13 for 13.
That's a real blast of the past.
I mean, that doesn't seem like really say anything about this team at all. But I mean, let's play this sound from Mike McDaniel after the game, because I was convinced, they're going to break the record. I mean, this is they had reached 70. They had to get to 73 to break the NFL record for a single team scoring in a game. But McDaniel chose not to do that. He grew up a Broncos fan, and I don't know if that informed this decision. He might have some respect for the organization and didn't want to be like an asshole about it. But I thought this was just a fascinating explanation for not doing so. Most coaches, I don't think, would have this perspective, but that's what makes McDaniel, my front runner for Coach of the Year.
I try to think through all my decisions and hold them with the importance that they do have. It felt like chasing points and chasing a record. That's not what we came to the game to do. That doesn't have a bearing on the overall season outcome, and I just didn't. I saw it as in that 10 times out of 10, you concede and kneel down in those situations because there was a attainable record. That was cool, but the message that I thought it would send wasn't really in line with how I view things. It's awesome to, I think it was the most points since '66 or something. I think that's awesome for a regular season record. You can have that and then suffer the same fate as we had last year. I don't care about that regular season record. It would have been cool, but what we're trying to do, I think that would be talking on both sides of my mouth if we wouldn't try to send the field goal team on and squeeze an extra 3. It's not really what I'm about.
I mean, new age coach, new age sensibilities, old school guys be like, what a soft piece of, garbage, right? Or total mushy man. Hey, this is the guy that's 3-0 and is now the coach of the best team in the NFL. I mean, Mike McDaniel showing humanity there, respect to like the opponent, respect to their like feelings. I mean, this isn't warfare. This is professional football, and they were winning that game, and that's all that mattered. And the fact that he's instilling that in his players, it's not about the record, it's about the win. I actually think that that's pretty impressive.
He's a better man than I, because I definitely would have gone for it.
I understand, but you are not trying to win a Super Bowl. He
No.
thinks like they can win,
I'm like trying
and
to
they 100% can.
I would be trying to rub it in Sean Payton's face for sure, but you're right. He's also like, he's also trying to be like a dignified member of the NFL community while also not being like, yeah, because
I don't even think he's doing that. I think he's trying to make his team like not get too high, like the Cowboys did,
right,
losing
in terms
to the
of
Cardinals.
get too gassed up.
No, thinking we are the hottest shit ever.
Yeah.
It's all about records. No one can stop us. I mean, he's trying to kind of give a little bit of good karma going their way.
Right, which
and
I think is
not that I believe in karma or fate, but when you're playing a game like this, it's a good message to send to your team.
and also I think you compare it, or at least I think it can juxtapose it with Sean Payton's remarks about Nathaniel Hackett prior to the season beginning, and about speaking about everything that went on with the Broncos the season before he took over, to make such kind of disparaging and sort of kind of off-color remarks publicly to a reporter, which, I mean, say what you will about like the code among coaches or whatever, which I'm sure this means something to some of them, obviously, but I just mean like, you juxtapose that where you're talking like that as if you're almost guaranteeing that you're going to be shepherding this team into a new era from the ashes of this like calamitous reign prior to him. And then you go in and this guy who is literally at the end of it after dropping 70 points on you being like, I wanted to show like restraint and grace towards this team that we just beat by 50.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a tale of two different approaches to coaching football, right? Like where Payton after the game was obviously like through gritted teeth, like snapping at reporters. It's like, sometimes you get your ass kicked, but also like people aren't going to really have sympathy for you.
Yeah.
After the remarks you made and after coming in with that type of energy and not backing it up so far this season.
Absolutely. He is absolutely not. And that's been honestly the most shocking element, because when he was the coach of the Saints, they always played hard. I mean, to the point where he had to be suspended for a year because of what happened with Bountygate, although many people recognize that a lot of teams around the NFL did that. They just wanted to make the Saints the example, and, Sean Payton bared the brunt, which is fine by me. I mean, if you do something wrong, you should get punished for it. And I guess I'd always been a Sean Payton apologist, because I still maintain that offense was much more Sean Payton's creation than Drew Brees. I think if you put Drew Brees in a majority of situations, he never had that very strong of an arm. He struggled outdoors. And the Sean Payton offense, before you had the McDaniels of the world coming with their ultra creative offense, Sean Payton was that guy. And so I have respect for that. But he also is an older coach who comes from the Parcells school of coaching. I mean, he was with Parcells on the Giants, Sean Payton, and he doesn't have that same kind of more kind or holistic humanity of like, we're all in this NFL community together. We're not here to humiliate other people. And I don't know, I just found that refreshing. And it makes Mike McDaniel just his uniqueness stand out even more, because it's not just uniqueness in cadence or him being kind of nerdy or speaking in a very unique manner about his experiences and be whatever. It's not just aesthetic. It's in practice. He's doing something a little bit different with his team. And by the way, you can see it in the way Tua's playing this year. Tua's playing incredibly well. He just gets the ball out so quickly. That's what this offense is doing really well. It's playing to his strengths, which is his quick release. And it looks unstoppable right now. And
to your point about not to valorize or sort of provide too much hagiography for McDaniel, I think a lot of the pundit class will do that for us. But
I can get swept up in that.
Oh, of course,
I
me
mean,
too.
McDaniel seems like amazing.
But there is
Would
something.
Love to smoke pot with McDaniel.
Yeah, no, he's like, he does seem honestly like one of the more thoughtful and kind of like benevolent coaches in the field. When I was saying to you literally before we got on air, like, for college and otherwise, but like you have to be kind of like there's a specific level of like I think like neuroses and like almost like borderline psychopathy to be a coach at the highest level in football. And I'm sure he possesses some of that, but I think there's a little what is a interesting wrinkle for him, especially in this context, but also in a broader context, is that he was a ball boy for the Broncos when he was younger. He grew up in Aurora, a suburb right outside of Denver.
That earlier.
Yeah, and like he so I think there's some reverence for the team that he grew up rooting for, and like not wanting to sort of like step on them, kick them while he made them where they were, kicking them while they're down. But also I can't speak for him in this way. This is a little bit of me extrapolating, but McDaniel has spoken recently in more detail about his substance abuse problems that he had while as a coach in Atlanta as a younger man, as like a quality control coach and a special assistant, and he struggled a lot with substance abuse, alcohol dependency, alcoholism, and which led him to have to basically take a detour through like the AAF and other secondary football leagues because he dropped out of coaching contention in Atlanta, while his fellow contemporaries Robert Saleh, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, and Kyle Shanahan continued to ascend into further other ranks, and he made his way back, and he basically said,
I think it was the Texans. I didn't want to correct you.
Oh, or the Texans, but he basically, I guess when he gets, you think he was with Schaub, Matt Schaub, and Kyle
when
Shanahan
was down there with Schaub,
in Houston.
Yeah.
He basically said the next time he got this opportunity, when he got the opportunity with San Francisco and then this head coaching job in Miami, he was just like, I'm sober now. I'm in a much better place in my life. I never want to like relinquish this opportunity and give it up, and like I know how many people would be like gunning and fighting for what I have and what I've lost. So now it's like,
no, it's inspirational.
Hearing that story too, that like you can literally be at rock bottom at some point and still make it to this like position in the NFL is really cool.
Totally.
And so I root for him for a lot of ways because I love what he does on the field, but I also root for him in that way personally. And
is there a better game planner or is there a better offensive mind besides Kyle Shanahan in the NFL right now?
No, I think, and the reason I was watching a few of the some clips from the, just like kind of looking back through some of the scheme stuff on Twitter yesterday. As we were both saying, I think also off camera, it's like how much speed obviously this team has because Devon Achane was like a track runner in college as well, so he has like straight line, like really like volcanic speed. And what they do with the obviously pre-snap motion in a lot of ways is like sort of, except for like obviously some offenses we like get annoyed with that don't employ it as much. It is kind of the name of the game in a lot of ways now on offenses, but McDaniel tweaks it in ways where it's even more confounding for defenses to like adapt on the fly than they would
Yes.
usually. Like there was this one
And then
play. Go ahead.
No, and then they snap the ball, and Tua gets it out so quickly that they can't
That
even
there's
adjust
like they don't
once-
even know where to turn,
Right,
basically.
right,
yeah.
right,
And
right.
there was this one play where it seemed like it was a like jet motion, like orbit motion sweep to Raheem Mostert, but it turns out it was a fake where Mostert was actually lead blocking, and then A-Chain from the other side of the formation came around in an end around, and he was the one who took the ball. So it was like a dual set of motion where they were already keying in on Mostert. Mostert didn't have the ball. He started blocking, and A-Chain went right by the entire Broncos defense.
Yes.
Like, that is like, you watch that, and it almost seems like a magic trick.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to watch something where you're like, it's crazy to watch something in 2023 as like someone who has watched football since I was a kid, and for you as well, like to be like, oh, I've actually like never seen that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
He's actually he's prototyping stuff that's like I haven't witnessed on the field before.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's revolutionary what he's doing there. There have been speedometers about the team. It's
Right.
some of the fastest recorded top speed that people have ever reached on that team. I mean, and like, look, Tua's played incredibly. Tyreek Hill would be that MVP of that team for me because he opens up all that stuff that you're talking about with his ability to go deep.
Totally.
They would not be able to run that offense. And the fact, this is also what's amazing. The run game totally expanded this year. I mean, they were way too much more reliant on the pass game last year. It makes Tua's job much easier now that you can have Mostert break off a long run, or Devon A-Chain, or whoever at this point. Like, the run scheme has improved to the point where you're getting Tyreek Hill in one-on-ones, and all Tua's got to do is just release it at the right time, and he gets that guy Tyreek, and he has yak. And just to return really quickly, big picture, to what I was saying earlier about the difference in philosophy, even though Sean Payton is known to be one of the most innovative offensive minds in the history of the game, we are seeing a bit of that old guard kind of fall by the wayside in their mentality, because Bill Belichick, also a Bill Parcells disciple,
yeah.
and Payton, I think, probably a little bit more warm and cozy with his players than Belichick, but still, the militaristic mindset in that way, we're seeing a new guard of elite coaching minds in the league, and I think it's led by someone like Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan as well.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too that the Belichickian. I feel like we're seeing also like kind of the rubber meeting the road of the like Belichickian coaching style, and also I think we see that in the success rate of his disciples.
Mm-hmm.
That not only is it maybe kind of what makes Belichick the coach that he is, I think might just be more attributable to him and like his football mind and his like personnel decisions.
Yes.
Because as we were talking about last week too, like we were talking about like Matt Patricia and Joe Judge and other kind of Belichick tree branches who like really have not succeeded that much in other places, where they're not in that kind of insular, very specific kind of localized patriot culture. Like, it seems like that culture is not nearly as much of like an export as the Shanahan coaching tree is at this point in time, with there being success in Los Angeles with McVay, success in Cincinnati with Zach Taylor, whatever we might think of him as a coach, obviously, but I mean with how Cincinnati has been, success with McDaniel and the Dolphins. Like, obviously only one of them so far has won a Super Bowl, but there's more like, I think, just visible success and innovation going on than whatever we've seen with the Belichick antecedents, or this descendants now.
Well, speaking of kind of failed Belichick disciples, that brings us to Josh McDaniels, who I cannot believe what I witnessed last night. Look, I don't know what to make of the Raiders. On one end of things, especially on defense, I'm like, they have no talent. I mean, it's Max Crosby, and that's it on defense in terms of who's making plays. Tyree Wilson is still seemingly not right after his foot injury, their first-round pick, and obviously there's something pretty wrong that's going on right now with Chandler Jones. So I hope that he's doing okay, given some of his social media activity. So they're not a very talented roster, but that is separate from the horrific game management that I witnessed last night. Fourth down, 2:25 left. What was it, like 4th and 5? Can you look that up? 4th and 5, 4th and 6, 4th and 4, right near the goal line. They were going to go kick a field goal with something like 3.5 minutes left because they were stalled. And I actually thought that was a decent decision because they could have punted it back to the Steelers. The Steelers were not some offensive juggernaut that night, even though they did play better, and the run game did look a little bit better last night than it had previously. But banking on your defense making a play, stopping them, and then you driving down and then winning the game, not needing the 2-point conversion to tie it up, I understood that mentality. But then there was a penalty that got them to extend the drive. They once again were stalled. It's 2:25 left, 4th down, 4th and not super long, near the goal line. You need a touchdown anyway. They're down 8 points. Not Mike McDaniel.
It was 4th and 4, by the way.
4th and 4, yeah. So completely manageable. If you're an offensive head coach who is supposedly one of the best offensive minds in football.
And to like tie the game potentially.
And I wouldn't even put that up there right now because you also need to know how to manage your players, and he doesn't seemingly know how to be able to do that. You're not the top offensive mind if you can just get Devontae Adams the ball 12 times a game and then not win any games, have strong opening drives, and then completely fall off the face of the earth the rest of the game. And Jimmy Garoppolo did not play well. We'll put that aside for a second. But you have an opportunity to win the game there. You need a touchdown regardless.
Right.
Like you either tie the game or you miss the extra point, the 2 points, and then you need that second that field goal. Right?
Or the 2-point, I guess.
No, but if you fail on the 2-point conversion.
Oh, yes, right.
Then you're down 2 and you need the field goal. Okay?
Yes, exactly.
So, but there's an opportunity to tie it up, and then you can make that assessment later, and you're in a much better position. On 4th and 4, 2:25 left, he sends Daniel Carlson out there for a 26 field goal try, and then it's a 5-point game. You're kicking it back to the other team with 2 minutes and change left, and by this point, the Raiders did not have all 3 of their timeouts. The Steelers get it at their 25-yard line. They are able to get a first down, and at that point, Vegas only gets the ball back with 12 seconds left, and they needed a touchdown at that point. If they had gone for it, if they had not gotten it, and they went for it on 4th and 4, and they turned it over on downs, you know what would have been more advantageous for them? If the Steelers were pinned down near their the
4-yard line,
the 10-yard line, or wherever they were.
Right. They'd have the march down the 90 more yards to get to the other end zone.
And you shorten the field for them. It increases the likelihood that you get a defensive stop, and then you're able to actually go down and win the game. It was one of the most flummoxing, bizarre decisions I'd ever seen, and it just seemed like super cowardly and weak.
Well, cowardly, but also like the idea that you would get kind of bailed out by a sort of like nebulous and kind of debatable helmet to helmet call on the defending team by DeMarvin Leal on the Steelers, to then literally make the same choice. Like McDaniels had a opportunity to be like, you know what? Now we can actually just try and get as close as we can to win the game before we give the ball back to the Steelers.
Yeah.
And instead he was like, no, still the same. Still the right call. Let's get the field goal unit out there.
You need so much more to go right. You need a 3 and out in order to have a chance to win the game.
Like literally any other opportunity to score.
But if you go for it on 4th and 4 and you score, then at minimum you need 2 points to tie the game.
Right.
And then if you don't score, then they're pinned back and you still have all that time that you had previously, except it's better field position, and then you still need that touchdown.
It was actually
like he was trying to
inscrutable.
cover some sort of larger spread as opposed to actually winning a football game.
Because as you said, as you've laid it out in every single scenario, literally even the worst case ones, even turning over on downs, or like missing the 2-point, for example, or like really any way you slice it, there's basically no less advantageous route to go than kicking the field goal without even trying to get into the end zone.
And I read some analytics, and I'm not analytics queen. Like, I do think that analytics sometimes strips out a lot of context, like game flow and what you're feeling or what you're observing subjectively in the moment, and you have to be able to make those assessments as coaches when you want to apply things and when you don't. I think context is everything. I totally get it. I'm sorry, though. There was no context in which this wasn't the right decision, both from a game flow perspective and from the analytics, which back it up, which showed that if they kicked the field goal there, they had a lower chance to win the game than if they were to go for it on 4th down at that point.
And then he got like a little like testy when someone was like, "Is this because you didn't have?"
He's testy all the time.
Well, of course, like it's just kind of his MO.
I mean, my boyfriend was saying that he was like, he looks like he's always like he has a stomach ache all the time.
he looks like perennially like constipated. Like
Yes.
he's always like trying to poop in some way or another. and
Well, he did last night on the field.
on the field. Yeah, exactly. He should the bad figuratively. But he got annoyed when someone was like speculating, like, "Is this because you weren't confident in your offense?" It's like, no, it was nothing to do with confidence. It's like, well, could you really begrudge anyone for thinking that? Like, you literally are not. You get Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason. You get Jacoby Myers in the offseason. Like, you are sort of basically building Patriots West, and you still are not. You have arguably one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league who, as you said, Emma, literally still performed pretty well despite losing, because that's what Devontae Adams does. He literally still somehow, some way gets like 170 yards and 2 touchdowns while still losing these games. And it's like, that's not enough for you to be like, we can get something on 4th and 4. What are you projecting to your team that you're not willing to like try, like literally just like facially try and win the game? How are you kicking a field goal twice and not sort of projecting in one way or another, whether you're intending to do so or not, that you are playing to lose or playing to get close but not win?
Yeah, and especially it's a good point by you, because the money is on the offense. You paid Jimmy Garoppolo,
right?
You paid Devontae Adams, traded for him. You paid Jacoby Myers. You paid a little bit more money than you originally were going to get Josh Jacobs back into the building.
Right.
Like, the money is on that side of the ball, and you don't trust that unit to go 4 yards with the game on the line. Also, when the analytics says that's the better decision from a perspective of actually winning the game. I mean, he's not going to get fired for the next 3 years because Mark Davis doesn't want to spend any money. He doesn't want to tear up a coaching contract and have to pay money for a guy who's not playing there anymore, but like, or coaching there anymore. But I don't know. The energy is horrible. The way that players speak about Josh McDaniels and how he interacts with them makes me not like him whatsoever. And I don't know what to say. I mean, there have been many head-scratching decisions by McDaniels at this point.
And all this points for me still to how I was feeling about the Raiders going into the season of like, I just don't exactly know how to like assess any projection of them as a franchise, both short-term and long-term. Like, I don't know if they're trying to win, trying to contend, trying to lose, trying to tank. Like, I just like, I can't get my finger on the pulse of like what they're actually like setting out to do.
And it's so annoying because I thought they looked kind of decent in that Broncos game, but now you're realizing, oh, maybe the Broncos are worse than we thought that they were. And
right.
They're doing this thing now, and it's 2 games in a row. It's a small sample size, but I'm just monitoring this. They have a great opening drive, and then they can't do shit after once people adjust.
Right.
How is that possible? You are an offensive genius, as people call you, Josh McDaniels. Why don't you have more options? Like, why is it the offense stalling as the game goes on, and they're not able to put together these, like, the ability to put up points once defenses start to catch on to what they're doing? And, like, part of it's because they just feed Devontae Adams. Where are the other dimensions in the offense? And Jimmy G looked, I don't know what his issue is, but some of those interceptions he threw were egregious.
I think that's just generally a problem that it's generally a problem that Jimmy has, where it's like, he's also one of those sort of confounding, like, I have him sort of in like the, Kirk, Derek Carr spectrum of guys, where it's like, you see the glimpses and like the glimmers of like real, like, clear quarterback talent that they have, where like they can make some nice throws and nice reads and like manage an offense, but then like still, like, without fail, the guys like him manage to like throw just some confounding, like, back-breaking interceptions in the course of a game, where you're almost like, did you miss something? Did you miss a read? Like, what were you seeing? Like, in the sense of like, there was one interception from last night. I think it was Patrick Peterson. Where it was like he really just threw the ball to him. It really there wasn't anything like like a guy jumped the route. Like he just literally was like, he's there. I'm gonna throw the ball to him.
Yeah, we might be thinking of the same one, but exactly. I mean, it I wouldn't even put Jimmy G in the category of Kirk Cousins. Kirk
is probably
accurate,
better. Kirk
right.
is
Jimmy Garoppolo is a meathead, and he makes these decisions that there's just not much going on up there. He's very pretty.
Nice
Everyone
guy.
likes how pretty
Nice
he
guy.
is. Seems like a nice guy. Seems like a very pretty guy. But
he's too busy.
He might not be the smartest guy.
He's too distracted by his Nona sauce.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
his life is going to be fine.
Sorry, that was some Italian racism on my part. I apologize.
Don't
demonetize
Chris
me,
and
too.
Andrew Cuomo are outside right now, and with
Get out here!
with baseball bats. Speaking of, I actually started The Sopranos over the weekend.
Oh, congrats! I'm so jealous. The first time.
I had watched the first 2 seasons when I was in college, and I was going through a breakup, and I stopped because I was sad about this guy who I dated for 2 months. I don't even know why I was sad about it, but anyway, and I was like, this is too depressing. I can't deal with this. I need to watch a comedy.
Bleak. Yeah.
And I don't know why I never picked it back up. So I'm really excited.
Keep me
to
updated on your
watching.
journey. It's basically my favorite show.
I'm mostly I'm more than halfway through season 1.
Nice.
Starting over the weekend. It's phenomenal.
It's so good.
And God, I
My
love
fave.
Maureen Bracco.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, Goodfellas is one of my favorites of all time, and she's
so good at both. Yeah.
She's such a perfect casting for a therapist, in that she has that ability to be
cadence down,
introspective,
yeah.
the cadence, yes, exactly.
And their relationship is one of the most fascinating throughout the whole show.
I know. I'm very excited about it. So the show's going super well so far in terms of my investment in it, and that shouldn't be shocking because it's one of the greatest shows of all time. I understand that, and my taste, right? Like Mad Men is my favorite because I love internal psychology of a tortured
And that goes
soul.
and that's I feel like there are big similarities in that way where
Yes.
they plumb the depths of Tony and Don's psyche.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe Matthew Weiner worked on.
Yes, he did. Yeah, prior to Mad Men.
on
Yeah,
Sopranos,
yeah.
so makes sense. Anyway, long story short, I'm excited to keep you guys updated on my Sopranos fandom. The Bears.
Oh gosh.
The Bears have now lost 12 in a row. Their defensive coordinator Alan Williams resigned last week. No one knows why.
Yeah, we still are. It's they widened the scope to inappropriate conduct, but we still don't know exactly what that inappropriate conduct entails.
And there was a rumor circulating on the internet that an FBI truck was raiding his house. Maybe it was raiding Hallis Hall. Then that was retracted and debunked. But then Pat McAfee said, "Oh wait, the FBI raid did happen on Alan Williams's home." And I don't know if that's been confirmed.
It's very odd. It's very hard to parse that info.
And then within 48 hours, Soldier Field got broken into and $100,000 worth of equipment were stolen.
Oh my God, right. I totally forgot.
And Justin Fields made comments that were very heavily criticized about his feeling that, quote, coaching was making him play in a more robotic manner.
Which he then had to basically in the locker room then walk back, sort of be like, no, I am confident in the coaching.
Yeah, I felt for him because I don't understand how you could be confident in Matt Eberflus's coaching. At the same time, though, bro, it's not just the coaching, because I've seen these videos on social media where there are 3 guys just sitting on routes wide open in front of you, and he's not hitting them. I mean,
the processing is still a problem. It's still in the sense of in terms of I think I sometimes think he is letting perfect be the enemy of the good, in that he's trying so hard to labor through his reads instead of just getting the ball out as quickly as he can.
I think you're being quite generous.
Do you think it's just a
he's not even going through his reads. Based on what I'm seeing.
I guess I just thought I kind of understood where he was coming from, that he was overthinking to the point where he wasn't in the flow of the game. I do think that's possible.
I think it's possible.
Just because I see in terms of the rushing ability we see, that's evident. But when he's dropping back to pass, it just seems like he's not it doesn't seem instinctive for him to like act reflexively and just like get the ball out. It seems like he's just thinking way too much before doing anything. But as you're saying, I guess it's definitely possible that maybe the processing also just isn't there.
It's his third year, and
Right.
I really appreciate the athleticism. He's exciting to watch as a runner, but I feel the jury is in at this point. It is not good. It's actually some of the worst field vision I've seen based on some and Zach Wilson's not playing well, but if I were to gun to my head be like a quarterback needs to be in your offense and make some reads, I would take Zach Wilson processing that information. Some of the videos I've seen, I followed some Bears beat writers and was looking at it. It's not good.
It is interesting that they kind of Fields and Wilson have similar, like, not exactly the same, but like sort of similar shortcomings in their game. That like
they're both
the field vision, the instinctive scrambling, even in clean pockets, like that type of thing.
They both have one elite thing that they have. I mean, Zach Wilson has a big
real
arm. But everything else is not coming together. And Justin Fields is an incredible athlete and runner, and everything else in the quarterback vein is not going together. My point, though, is I would always take the guy that can throw it like that and has and has the ability to hit some of those things. But we're picking from really the bottom of the barrel at this point.
It's just interesting that they were drafted, like, I think basically like 5 picks apart.
It was
like
Trevor Lawrence, it was Zach Wilson, then it was Trey Lance.
Right.
Then later in the draft, it was Fields, and then after that, it was Mac Jones. So, I mean, long story short, it is really a complete disaster for the Bears, and I feel for Bears fans at this point. However, I will say, now you guys have DJ Moore, you have Cole Kmet locked up, you have all these pieces in place, and if you're in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, there are some things here that you like, but Matt Eberflus seems like a completely uninspired leader. There's nothing about what he does from a coaching perspective that makes me think that he is the coach of the future for this team. It was a complete beatdown. Justin Fields was 11 for 22 for 99 yards and an interception, and he had 1 touchdown pass in garbage time to DJ Moore. He had a 1.5 quarterback rating for inside the pocket. He was off target on 25% of his passes when he did not feel any pressure, according to ESPN analytics, and I would only cite that if I was able to back up those statistics with my watching of the game, and I watched that full game basically, and that was exactly how it appeared. It is one of the worst off-target rates for quarterbacks not under pressure in a long period of time when looking at those stats. And yeah, it especially when on the other side of the field, Patrick Mahomes became the fastest player to throw for 25,000 yards in the history of the NFL.
Go figure.
It put their issues in stark relief. Sometimes, I'm always going to be the person that's like, take the athletic upside player who has room to grow from a processing perspective or from a professional pocket quarterback perspective, and then mold him into that via good coaching. I don't think the coaching's good for the Bears, but I also think Fields is not making slam dunk quarterback throws that you would see on even a middling college team. And for that, I would be very concerned. I think he's not the quarterback of the future. I feel quite confident in saying that at this point. And they and the Bears front office acted in that manner as well. Like, there's a reason that they did not, that they decided that they were going to get an extra first-round pick for next year. And it's because whether it's Way, whether it's Williams, they were making contingency plans to move on. If things didn't go their way, they still set it up. They traded for DJ Moore. They made it so that he had a little bit more support this year, but it's not happening.
And I think on one hand, you could be sort of, as a Bears fan, maybe like frustrated that they ultimately made the choice to like run it back with Fields this year. But I totally agree with you in the sense of, I think Ryan Poles, at the very least, as you said, sort of hedged his bets by being like, we'll stay the course this year and see what we have. in terms of these, giving a little bit more insurance to Fields and see if he can develop. And worst case, as you're saying, if this is just not going to pan out, we have the picks. It's a pretty deep quarterback draft, even outside of Caleb Williams and Drake May. But if we really are this,
May, sorry, not Way.
Yeah, Drake May. Yeah, if we really are not this untalented, basically, because you also got to keep in mind too, the defense is super young, and they spent very little money on it. There's except outside of Tremaine Edmonds, outside of linebacker, basically.
Yep.
The offensive line is also pretty young and pretty in flux. They just signed Nate Davis. Darnell Wright's a rookie. But if you're the Bears and this ultimately happens, they get a pretty low pick, it wouldn't be the worst thing to see one of these young quarterbacks with, DJ Moore as the number one, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Khalil Herbert, and Roshan Johnson in the backfield, a line a year older. I could see that being a great blueprint for next year, but I think I'm with you in the sense that Fields definitely hasn't shown enough, but also the coaching, I think, very clearly hasn't shown that they can also even sustain or supplement Field in the way that they could, that maybe another better coaching staff could.
Yeah.
But I think it's a similar thing where we were talking about with the Jets too, is again, here we are with two defensive-minded head coaches with a young quarterback, a young flawed quarterback who are not elevating or helping him succeed.
Yes,
really.
yeah, that is, and I think it's not a coincidence that both head coaches are defensive guys.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Look at how Anthony Richardson is being, who is more raw, right? I mean, people thought Fields was more pro ready than Anthony Richardson coming out in the draft. Let's remember that.
Oh no, if I'm remembering correctly, if it's not too recency bias, implemented because of how Richardson looked before his injury, I do feel like a lot of the pre-draft scuttlebutt around him was sort of he's really a project. When honestly, seeing the way he was throwing the ball before he got injured and the way he was deploying the rush more patiently, I think he's actually way less of a project than he was kind of projected.
I think that's Shane Steichen, right?
Right.
And you can see how a head coach being in the ear of his young quarterback helps, and who knows? It appears to that Anthony Richardson just has the brain to be able to process this kind of information, but you'll also never know if it's a chicken or the egg situation.
Right,
Is it
right.
Shane Steichen teaching Anthony Richardson this stuff? Could he have taught someone like Justin Fields or Zach Wilson
right.
those more fine points of the game? And the jury's still out on Anthony Richardson, but he's looked better in his first 2 games before he got concussed than Justin Fields has looked so far, than Zach Wilson has looked so far at all, basically. And I think that there's something to that, having a guy like him who is a quarterback whisperer, teaching your young quarterback how to play the game.
And it goes to show too how with the Colts right now, relative to last year when they were freaking helmed by Jeff Saturday, and prior to that, obviously Frank Reich, what we saw with Richardson, but also with the offense not really missing a beat with Gardner Minshew behind center, when even in Philly last year when Minshew took over for Hurts when Hurts was injured, I actually think Minshew looks more kind of comfortable in this Colts offense than he did with the Eagles last year, trying to sort of helm the Jalen Hurts playbook, which I think is a testament to Steichen. And then also the Colts run game, even without Jonathan Taylor, looks much more reinvigorated than it did basically at all last season. I mean, the line seems to be more comfortable, and Zach Moss, who Zach Moss hasn't, been a consistent down to down quality back, I'd say, but he's looking really feisty and really kind of activated in this offense. And I think a lot of that, when you see the personnel being elevated, or at least you're seeing these guys where it is such a gift, where it might seem to be a little bit intangible, but it's such a gift to have for a guy like Shane Steichen, even this early in the season, to see coaches who know I am going to map my scheme and my project around your strengths.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to fit my scheme onto whatever you are.
Yeah.
And
that's the
I think
hallmark of a good coach.
Totally.
Playing to your players' strengths.
100%. I just think we're seeing that so much with the Colts.
Yes. I mean, praise for Shane Steichen. He's, if there were to be a rookie coach of the year award, he would be already number 1 for me. Although DeMeco Ryans is having that defense play really well as well. Let's just turn to that other
Oh yeah,
AFC South team.
other young QB.
I mean, I am ready to take a victory lap on my CJ Stroud hype, saying he was by far and away the #1 quarterback in this draft class. Hey, look, I'm not gonna get everything right. Perhaps I defended Zach Wilson for a bit too long. I was right about Lamar and Josh Allen being the best quarterbacks in that draft class. No big deal. I'll mention that every single
absolutely
time.
No worries. No big we have a big prognosticator over here.
Not making a big deal about it, but now I have a show where there's actually audio recordings of me saying these things, so people can go back and see what my assessment was of CJ Stroud in the NFL draft. Some of the statistics here are just his 906 yards, third most through 3 starts behind 2 guys, Cam Newton and Justin Herbert.
Not bad company to keep.
Below him is Patrick Mahomes at 866 in his first 3 games, and below him is Andrew Luck at 846. That is the top 5 in terms of yardage in the first 3 starts of their NFL careers. CJ Stroud has also not thrown an interception in his first 3 games.
And that's crazy. That's wild.
And his supporting cast is widely considered to be, and I would agree with this, definitely bottom 3rd in the NFL, and that's being a bit charitable. Tank Dell did break out. He had an amazing...
he's looking really good, especially for his
good.
size and stature. Like, credit to him. He's a real receiver.
I think he is, and you could see why apparently Stroud wanted him in the draft and said to the coaching staff that he wanted him, and Tank Dell's a Houston guy, so that's a nice story, I would say. And credit to D'Amico Ryans. I just went on a diatribe about how difficult it is for some of these young quarterbacks to get their footing when they have a defensive head coach whose mentality is much more about playing through the defense, maybe running the ball, not putting too much on the quarterback, and maybe not knowing how to coach a quarterback in the same way. But D'Amico Ryans has whatever he's instilled in CJ Stroud is working, because for all the problems that the Texans have, I would say coaching is not one of them, because the defense has really improved under him. And CJ Stroud is not the other. The biggest problem that the Texans have is talent. They are starting a rebuild that I was ambivalent about, given their history. But now that I see how CJ Stroud has looked, and I will be honest, Will Anderson looks better than I thought. I thought he was a little bit more one-dimensional. Yeah, than he is. He looks bigger or something. He looks stronger. It looks like he maybe... I thought he wasn't the physical specimen in Alabama that he looks like on the field so far. So I was a little worried that they gave away too much since they traded a first-round pick to go back up and take him. But look, this is a good foundation for a young team.
He's one of those guys, Anderson, who I think, because of his measurables, could have been seen as a tweener. But I think watching him a little bit at Alabama and also seeing a few of his reps in Houston already, I think it goes to show that he's really technically skilled, but he also has like a good amount of like violence to how he rushes. So I think it's like you see his strength despite him being like a little bit undersized. And so that's also encouraging to see, like, 3 games in, that he's already kind of showing some of that pedigree that he had in at Alabama.
I just worried that he was had a bit of the Kayvon Thibodeau issue, where he's more of a he's more one-dimensional as a pass rusher in the NFL, and as opposed to college, and it wasn't going to translate. It seems like that's wrong. Seems like the Kayvon thing is right. That's a whole nother story, and I'm a Giants fan, so that bums me out. But Kayvon Thibodeau was having a horrible year. But I am thrilled with how CJ Stroud looks, and I just root for him. The Panthers are morons. They're morons. I'm sorry. I mean, this was clearly a move by ownership, because he got dazzled by Bryce Young's smarts and his brain, and they went out to dinner, and he thought that he was a really nice guy, and I don't doubt that Bryce Young is a nice guy.
Like the leadership qualities, the intangibles,
but CJ Stroud, by all accounts, is a great leader, really smart. He sees the field so well. He can do a variety of throws.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
The pace on the ball is perfect. It's different. It's a perfect spiral every single time. I am so impressed by how he looks, and I don't understand how you could come away with going into this draft with the first overall pick, trading up, and seeing the way Bryce Young looks on a football field and going with him over CJ Stroud, all because of a stupid analytics test that the freaking Carolina Panthers had a contract with, and they made broad assessments about Stroud based on that. And I mean, they're going to be haunted by this mistake for years.
And to your point, what I think we were thinking even prior to the prior to week 1, prior to any real games being played, which I think is bearing out a little bit so far, is that Stroud has like the ideal measurables for like a current present day quarterback: height, weight, and also he has, to me, kind of like echoes of Trevor Lawrence a little bit. And what I mean by that is sort of his vision is fantastic. He's mostly a pocket passer, but he has great footwork, and because of his vision being so excellent, he can make really, really accurate throws while also throwing guys open on kind of basically at all levels of the field. He's great in intermediate. He's great sideline to sideline. He can throw deeper balls, and if he needs to, like he showed in the Ohio State Georgia game last year when they almost came back and won that game, he was able to create in space, but while Trevor doesn't prefer to do so, he can do it.
Yeah.
And so that to me was very encouraging. Whereas Bryce Young,
I saw the comp to Burrow. I wonder if
maybe similar thing, like high processing speed, very aware, field awareness. I think that's
either
fair
way,
too.
high praise.
Totally. Whereas Bryce, I think both me and you, the concern is, if you can love the accuracy, you can love the way he makes play out of structure, you can love what he gives you on the sideline and in the locker room. I totally understand. You're also accepting that you are truly taking, in terms of height and weight, a complete size outlier in the NFL. And I wouldn't say the Panthers' skill position personnel is necessarily much better or worse than the Texans, and yet the Texans beat the Jaguars.
Well,
like the Texans beat the Jaguars by 20 points.
That was crazy.
And the Panthers I think were able to score one offensive touchdown against the Saints last week.
It is also notable that the Panthers looked much better with Andy Dalton this week.
Right, with like 35-year-old but 6'2", 220 Andy Dalton.
Who
so like,
can
go figure.
Break a tackle if there's pressure coming at him and then move outside the pocket and then throw a ball like he did across his body during that game, and they still lost. Panthers are not that talented, especially on offense. Their defense with Evero is playing really, really well for an 0-3 team. But man, they've made their bed. We'll see how it goes. I just think it's going to be another example of billionaire idiocy where they get way too involved, think that they know better than the football people, and look what happens. I mean, I'm sorry. I know maybe this isn't what people want to hear, but based on what I've seen in 2 games, it looked horrible. He looks so small. This is not tenable, and he's already injured. He's already out in week 3.
And I think beyond
more of this is happening.
And beyond anything on the field, as you're saying, I also think just like the durability, I think is definitely a concern in terms of like, you know, the Saints defense has a bunch of monsters on it, and they got after him when he was playing. Like, I mean, I think obviously, you know, of course there's a chance, you know, we're wrong. I just think like I struggle to bet against like the entirety of like, you know, the history of quarterback play in terms of thinking that like a guy who is literally flies in the face of size outliers can be the only one.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom, but I mean, of course, anything is possible, but it is hard to fathom.
And if he was 5'9" and thicker, I would feel differently. If he was 5'9" and had Kyler Murray athleticism, I would feel a little bit differently.
He even had like Russell Wilson's body type.
He doesn't have anything like that. Right. No, he's not thick. He's slight, and he's short, and he's not very athletic with his legs. This is not a game where just mind transcends physicality. Football is still a game of physicality, okay? And
as we've said before, I said this when I was talking about, you know, seeing a guy like Deshaun Watson in his rookie year or second year with the Texans, was that he had a terrible supporting cast and still looked fantastic because he was a fantastic player. And Stroud, and similarly to me so far, is like, that's not a great supporting cast, but they still got a big win over a division rival.
And I feel that way about Anthony Richardson, even though we didn't play last week.
It's not a great supporting cast, but they are showing what they have contained within themselves to help the team around them exceed the sum of their parts.
100%. Well said. A few more odds and ends here before we. We should talk about the Cowboys here.
Yeah.
Bradley and I both lost in Survivor last week because of the Ravens.
Yeah, not feeling great about that.
Yeah, I don't know what I mean. We might just abandon Survivor now that we've both died according to the rules of the game. But I picked the Cowboys to beat the Cardinals, and I thought that was kind of a sure thing.
I literally said it was a sure thing. I should never have said that. I should. This is speaking of karma from Mike McDaniel. This is what I get for saying that this would be a sure thing.
It is unfathomable how badly the Cowboys defense struggled against the run. They gave up 222 yards on the ground
to like James Conner and like Rondell Moore in a gadget roll, like out of the backfield.
It was
like,
also a lot of Joshua Dobbs running
yes,
the
right,
ball.
like QB runs, right?
Yeah, he put on a bit of a show on the ground against the Giants when we played them.
That's
last
right.
week.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with Mike McCarthy. His teams are not detailed. Other elite teams in the NFL would never let this happen to them. They would never feel so high on their own supply like the Cowboys have been feeling since they shut out the Giants, since they put the beat down on the Jets as well. Like, they were feeling themselves, and then they went into Arizona unprepared. And I will give them some slack in the sense that they lost a lot of guys heading into this week. I mentioned Trevon Diggs out for the season with that torn ACL, which is horrible. Zach Martin didn't play. He had a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, it was a pretty patchwork offensive line for them.
Their center, whose name I can never pronounce.
Tyler Biotish.
Biotish was out. And they had a bunch of different guys on that offensive line. But that wasn't really the story of the game to me. It was the fact that the run defense was pretty bad. And there were... That had been traditionally last year a little bit of what could be exploited, if I'm not mistaken, because the Cowboys are a speed defense. And if you're able to get big and kind of bully them a little bit, you can make some gains in the run game. It's why the Jets play calling was confounding to me in that game, because why did Breece Hall only get 4 or 5 touches? That didn't make any sense. The run game is clearly their weakness. And then really overall what I would say is the weakness of the Cowboys is going to be that arrogance that I think that comes from the top, whether it's Jerry or whether it's Mike McCarthy not being detailed. We saw that in that in their playoff losses, in that horrible play 2 years ago now, where Dak Prescott ran it up the middle against the 49ers, and they didn't really have a plan to spike it, and they blame the official and all those things. They don't have the level of precision that other elite teams do. They just kind of rely on their talent and their creative coaching on the defensive side of the ball. But I'm curious to see if Mike McCarthy's play calling, teams start to pick up on it at this point, because now there's 3 games of what Mike McCarthy wants to do with this offense. And another thing I probably should have thought about, but hindsight's obviously 2020, is that Jonathan Gannon has now seen 3 straight NFC East teams to start the year, and Jonathan Gannon last year was the defensive coordinator in the NFC East.
Right.
So
right.
he's a clown.
A good point.
I still think he's a clown, but he had seen these first 3 teams twice last year, and probably had a good sense of how to beat them. Well, and that's why he gave the Commanders and the Giants almost lost, the Cardinals, and then the Cowboys, supposedly the best team in the NFL. Although I would say the Dolphins at this point. They lost.
I thought it was an interesting game plan from the Cardinals offense, which I think I obviously can't tell if this can be replicated, just because Micah Parsons is such an individual talent, and also because I imagine the Cowboys and Dan Quinn in that defense will do their best to try and kind of not be under this type of duress from another offense going forward, especially not one as kind of like, talent deficient as the Cardinals. But a smart thing that I think that they were doing was that instead of trying to sort of run away from Parsons, which I think kind of gets to his advantage, plays to his advantage because he's such an excellent spinner and stunter and twister. Like he's always like it's actually sometimes more beneficial that even if he lines up outside, he'll kind of like knife in, get past the center, and still blow up a play despite being lined up on the edge.
He's incredible.
Whereas kind of running straight at him, he's sort of inclined, or at least has to a little bit backpedal a little bit. And even if you sort of get him into a stance where he's kind of backpedaling or twisting his hips a little bit to go into coverage, I think you can kind of shock him a little bit, or at least get him on his toes in a way that makes him much more vulnerable than if he's just going straight downhill, pinning his ears back and trying to either sack the quarterback or go into the pile to get a runner down. So I think that they were doing that well, and also disguising runs well, like with that touchdown where Rondell Moore was not lined up. He was lined up in the backfield, and they handed it off to him, and they were not really ready to see. They still, I think, thought even in that formation, Moore was going to be running a route, so they didn't really have him blocked, and he just took the ball, and because he hasn't been, I think, utilized the best way, but this was a great way to use him. He's small and he's fast. Yeah. So just to get him out.
And their last touchdown was to another small and fast guy, Hollywood Brown.
Right.
Is, probably kicking himself for forcing his way out of Baltimore, but he's still a talented player with a lot of speed.
So I was honestly impressed with the game plan, especially with, obviously, like I said, given the disparity in talent, and I think the Cardinals should feel pretty good about this win. I mean, even if maybe it's the only one they get all year, this was I think a really, really probably nice win to have going back into into practice the next week, and they should feel pretty good about that run performance, both on the offensive line and with their with the backs with James Conner.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, who knows? Michael Bidwell might be smacking Jonathan Gannon across the face for winning that game when they're trying to get in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes.
What the hell are you doing?
But for me, as somebody who does not want Caleb Williams to go to that organization that is not the most well run, and I would prefer to see his talent flourish elsewhere. I'm okay with it. I would love to see Caleb Williams more on the Bears or something, place like that, or maximum chaos if he goes to the Broncos or something. But I don't know.
Gosh, on the
Could
Broncos.
you I mean, they're 0-3. I'm gonna look at tankathon.com.
No. It's like especially how we'd been talking, or like how even like the NFL media had been talking about Denver under Sean Payton. The fact that even like we could even consider them in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes is unbelievable.
It's amazing. I mean, there are three.
But do they have a pick?
4 0-3 teams. Yeah, they do. Because
okay.
2 first-round picks. And they traded. I checked this the other day because I was confused as well. They traded Russell Wilson before the draft, so.
Oh yes, okay.
The pick before he played his first disastrous season already happened, and then they drafted with the second one.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it is a possibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because right now there are 4 0-3 teams. Cincinnati could be the 5th, but not quite yet. We shall see. It seems like Joe Burrow may play tonight. 0-3 for Chicago, 0-3 for Denver, 0-3 for Minnesota, and then 0-3 for Carolina, but Chicago has their first-round pick.
Got it, right.
But, and then the other team that has the other team that has 2 first-round picks is the Arizona Cardinals, but they have the Texans pick and then their own, and those are at this point a bit later in the draft. I think it's looking much better for Chicago to be at the top of the draft or taking that guy because they have 2 shots at it, and I think the Panthers and the Bears are going to be definitely in the top 10 worst NFL teams in the league. So we shall see.
But one thing before we move on from the Cardinals is I was definitely also heartened by the offensive line performances. DJ Humphries played pretty well.
Yeah.
Who would re-sign with them? One of basically the only guys that re-signed with them. First round pick Paris Johnson looked pretty good on the right side, and I just wanted to highlight their center, Emma, because he is Scandinavian.
Oh, he is.
Hjalte Froholt.
Oh my gosh. What kind of Scandinavian?
He's a Dane.
How do you say that?
It's Hjalte, I believe.
Spell that.
Hjalte Froholt. He's kind of bounced around the league, but I think they signed him from Cleveland or another team. But he's been playing pretty well so far. He's actually been doing pretty well for them at center. So nice to see even honestly any sort of hey, these guys are pretty good at football for Arizona going forward if they are able to have anything to build on after this year.
I see him here. Now I need to look up where this Scandinavian scamp went to college. Danish professional American football guard for the Arizona Cardinals. He played football in Denmark for the Svendborg Admirals.
The Svendborg Admirals.
And then he was recruited to play for the Arizona Razorbacks, and then was drafted in the 4th round. There you go. Look at that.
Arkansas Razorbacks?
Is that what I said? Arizona? I meant Arkansas.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool.
Arkansas.
Yeah. Hogs.
Hogs, baby. Hogs. All right, well, that is... You love to see it. You love to see it. All right, just some, other odds and ends, quick notes. I'm not sure what else really stands out from the weekend. Jets, I don't even want to talk about that game. It was in the rain. It was so boring. Is that okay?
Yeah, not much to talk about, honestly.
It's depressing.
It's
I feel bad for you guys.
It's just sad all around. Robert Saleh confirmed that he still wants. He says Zach is the undisputed quarterback.
What else can they do? They can't bring in another guy at this point.
It might be too far gone. I think we're just kicking the can until 2024.
I think so too. And you'll have that 1st round draft pick this year, so might as well.
That's true. That is true. That's pretty good.
You want to? I mean, if they still have any hope for Zach, it's like bringing in someone else.
Another guy.
That's not. That's. I mean, one more thing is the Minnesota Vikings are doing, I think, what they never do, which is actually trying to bottom out a little bit.
I mean, 0-3. I think isn't it kind of insane? And before we get to that, because I think it's definitely possible, but isn't it kind of insane that the regression to the mean has hit so sharply? Like, they have lost 3 one-score games in a row after going like 8-1, whatever it was in one-score games last year. Like, it's crazy. Just the math just it just lashed right back.
Oh yeah.
For them.
And what's amazing too is that the defense actually looks better than it did last year. I mean, the Brian Flores effect on the defense makes the defense is definitely better in terms of scheme. They are more prepared than they were last year,
and they're like kind of like utilizing what they have more like creatively. It's not, they're like, Flores is like, okay, we have like a bunch of safeties, let's like actually try and like use our safeties.
Well, they have a bottom 5 defensive roster in the NFL,
right,
and then
in terms of personnel.
On the offensive side, they were better at running the ball with Madison this game, which I did feel happy for him that after he got a torrent of offensive racist remarks because he had a bad performance in week 2.
That's like the fantasy poison, right? It's
disgusting.
Just,
I mean, and we talked to Arian Foster about that, about the dehumanization that comes with people seeing you as a commodity for their fantasy team. But Madison didn't have a good game, and then they traded for Cam Akers, and he actually had some redemption. So I was happy to see that, even though in the end, they didn't win that game, despite Brandon Staley giving them an opportunity to do so. By
he tried.
On 4th and 1, deep in their own territory, for some reason, they didn't get it. And then, because of, honestly, Kirk Cousins' like bad decision, they passed it to Hawkinson.
Mm-hmm.
They were at the 6-yard line for the Chargers. Hawkinson was tackled. They just took their time instead of rushing to the line to spike the ball and stop the clock. They let 25 seconds run off before snapping the ball with 12 seconds to play, and then Kirk Cousins threw an interception on that pass. They just let the clock run all the way down from 37 seconds to 12 when they needed a touchdown to win. And then there was an interception, and the defense bailed out Brandon Staley, who, if they actually didn't win that game, I was going to come on here and have a fit, because Justin Herbert threw for 400 yards and looked incredible. And that offense seems to be coming along, even though poor Mike Williams out for the year with a torn ACL. But yeah, that sucks, right? I'm sorry.
But, obviously didn't see the injury report, so
yeah,
hearing this for the first time.
And if you did, not that they would have registered.
No.
You're just like incredible with every name and like who these guys humanly are. But if they're injured, if they're playing, it's just not.
I would have picked them for Thursday, but Mike Williams is back out there.
Yeah, right.
Keenan Allen had an amazing game though. I couldn't believe 18 targets, 215 yards.
Yeah.
He threw for a touchdown.
Oh my gosh,
I
know. Good for Keenan Allen.
Yeah, nice to see after still in age, probably 30, maybe 32, 33 at this point. He can still kind of have a banner game like that, but also great to, like as you said, great to see Herbert like really slinging it.
And that was a Herbert, a game where Herbert can have some confidence, where they're not shrinking late in games and they're actually able to close one out. I would put that much more on Brandon Staley than I would on Justin Herbert. But from his perspective, happy to see them get that win. But I think Kirk Cousins is gone after this year. Who knows where he ends up? He could end up in San Francisco if Purdy doesn't work out.
Shanahan's like final dream comes true.
He's always wanted him.
Yeah, finally getting his hands on Kirk Cousins as a head coach.
I wonder where else we could see him. I mean, there will be some openings. Honestly, the number one place I would think of would be Atlanta. But
yes, interesting. Falcons could be an idea.
But for some reason, Arthur Smith has a really ironclad vision for how he wants to craft his team, which is all skill position players and quarterbacks who can't throw but are athletic, aka Mariota and Desmond Ridder.
And I guess Heineke's now the backup in Atlanta, right?
Can't throw but can scramble.
But is a gun, and also is kind of like a heat check guy too, whereas Ritter's a little bit more like risk averse, I would say. But just like it is weird though. I honestly agree. I almost think that like having a more just like proficient / like functional guy in Kirk would actually make that offense kind of sing even more. Just having a guy like who could very capably spread the wealth around the receivers, because the run game's good. It's just like I think Ritter's still an open question. Like I don't think there's really no way to say, oh yeah, he should definitely be like
an
NFL's
open question is generous. He's looked like the worst starting quarterback in the NFL this entire season.
But it's interesting that it sort of is almost like seen as like a foregone conclusion that like, oh, like Ritter's gonna be the starter, and sort of be like, yeah, like we're gonna be fine with like Desmond Ridder.
Well, that's because Arthur Smith is weird. He's just a weird man, and I don't understand his thinking. I respect his kind of counter programming impulse of, I'm not going to build the team around the quarterback. I'm going to build the team, and the Falcons have a ton of great talent on that team.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But if they're not making a splash at quarterback next year, they actually could oust Arthur Smith, because what are they? I mean, the team is getting ready. They just need to find somebody who can put them over the edge. Maybe it's Kirk Cousins. Maybe it's frickin' Baker Mayfield or somebody like that. But anybody would be an improvement over frickin' Desmond Ridder.
And the Lions defense like kind of got after them on Sunday. Like even a defense that I guess we've said is like not a whole lot to write home about. But like Aiden Hutchinson had a good game. Brian Branch, the rookie safety, was all over the place against them. So like there obviously they're like a pretty high wattage offense, but as you're saying, like there are ways for them to be stopped, and I think part of that comes with not having like a really like dynamic answer at quarterback to like just make stuff happen.
Yeah, exactly. And a few more things before we wrap here. Good for Jordan Love, home opener. That was awesome to see.
Yeah, to come back. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, they're like getting shut out at some point, right?
I mean, the Saints defense is as real as I think people thought.
Oh yeah, they're good. They're definitely like they're legit.
They're even more legit than I thought they would.
Oh,
be.
I at first was like, oh, I don't know. I was a little low on them because of the Dennis Allen. Wasn't super inspired by them just across the board. Offense, I think we can still say is kind of that leaves a little bit to be desired, but the defense is, as you're saying, definitely legit.
Lights out, yeah,
for sure,
totally. So that's well, and we will see how Derek Carr recovers from that shoulder injury. It seems like the worst did not happen at that point. Lions look great. I still am flummoxed by their usage of Jahmyr Gibbs. They kept trying to
as a fantasy owner, it's really.
Manager.
Excuse me.
Politically correct.
Owner.
Fantasy. I am also a Jahmyr Gibbs fantasy manager. I am confounded by their desire to have him run through the tackles when it's super clear that he's a space guy, and they should be using him in the pass game more, which they haven't been. This was a primary opportunity because David Montgomery wasn't playing, so it's a little bizarre to me. I'm not sure what Ben Johnson's going for, but they did win that game. Gritty win by the Lions. Chargers game we mentioned. Matt Jones is a little. Did you see that he maybe
like kind
kicked
of pot-shotted sauce?
Yeah, sauce in the balls is what he was saying.
He's kind of a dirty player. He's
a dirty player.
That's sort of.
This is his fourth dirty play that has made national headlines.
And it's kind of even like followed him since college. It's kind of just. I think it's just sort of how he is.
Well, I don't like it.
No, he's a twerp.
Yeah, he seems like kind of spoiled Southern boy energy.
McCorkle,
right. Yeah, McCorkle punch sauce in the balls. That's a headline for the weekend.
I Mandela affected that I thought he was Australian.
You did.
And he's just from Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah.
I just was like, he's Australian. And some of my friends was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, wait, is he Australian? They're like, no, he's like from Jacksonville.
Oh, no, he
I was
is.
like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, got it. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we touched on everything else. The Seahawks look good. Geno looks good. All of that. I mean, tonight, though, what's your prediction?
So it's Rams, Bengals, and Eagles, Bucs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Eagles, Bucs is first. I'll give you the point spread as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
The Eagles are currently 5.5-point favorites, and the Bengals are still 3-point favorites, which is the line has remained, even though it seems like Joe Burrow might be playing. That's the same line as what we had on.
I think the Eagles will probably be pretty comfortable in this game. I'm going to say like 28-10 Eagles.
Yeah, I have 27-21 written down. Eagles, having them go over. Although I'm not sure I feel confident about that at that point. Let me I'll just say 27-21 for fun. Who cares? And then I'm gonna pick the Bengals to win just because Joe Burrow's gotta step up at a certain point right now. I mean, it's not on him. He's playing through injury, but I feel like he's the kind of guy that understands the weight of this game, and if they lose.
And as we said last week, this is kind of like a must win for an AFC team that really wants to contend. I mean, going 0-3 is going to be catastrophic.
Could be catastrophic, exactly. So I'm going to go 24-20 Bengals. What about you, Bradley?
I am going to say 28-27 Rams.
Woof. Woof. All right.
And I think our guys Puka and Tutu are gonna be crisscrossing the field for making things happen.
All right. Let's go Puka and Tutu, except not because I want Bradley to lose. So fun games tonight. We will be back with you on Thursday. Appreciate you all. Thanks so much. Leave some comments, like the stream, get it into the algorithms. Combat the fact that I'm pretty sure that my Twitter account is being restricted from being seen in the public. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have no proof, but I have 220K followers, and I don't think my tweets ever since I did the Tim Pool appearance and Elon Musk commented on it publicly, I don't think my tweets have gotten over 200 likes.
He'd be like,
And I'm not monitoring it,
Linda,
but it is a little odd.
Linda,
and all of my
shift into the undesirable pack.
All of my replies are just like shitting on me too. There's no utility in me.
Yeah, Sam says the same thing. Sam says literally all of his mentions are just like,
you're a Jew.
Yeah,
right.
it's a wasteland at this point.
I can't believe it. Anyway, so do help me out, and like the stream so that people see this show, because I can't promote it on Twitter anymore, which is the only social media I seem to know how to use anyway. So
yeah, help us fight the shadow ban.
Yeah.
Big Tech is in bed with Big Con.
Honestly,
he was right. Steven Crowder was right. I don't want to hand it to him, but he was right.
All right, guys. Appreciate you all. See you on Thursday for our picks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.